There are two types of performance benchmarks. The first is a trend analysis. Now, a trend analysis is comparing the firm's financial statements over time, or a time series comparison, and then peer group comparisons, comparing the firm's financial statement with those of similar or peer firms. So, a trend analysis is first, and the trend analysis basically means that they'll use financial ratios to provide insight into whether the firm is improving or deteriorating over time. So, by doing so, it will show you over time a time span most of the time over a few years, but sometimes it could be quarterly or semesterly, over if a firm is actually doing good based on a chart. And then there's a chart in the textbook that depicts Home Depot, and it depicts the biggest competitor next to it, Lowe's, and they show based on cost of goods sold over inventory, and that's how they show the inventory turnover rate for each one. And Home Depot wins because over time it is higher. So that's what they do. They compare things over time through trends. So the next one is the peer firm comparison. A peer firm, in the textbook it says, is simply one that analysts believe will provide a relevant benchmark for the analysis at hand. This can be varying depending on whether the analysis is conducted internally or carried out by an external analysis. So they also give the example of Dell and the company called Compaq. Now, that was the leader at the time. So what happens in a peer firm comparison is they will take a company that they believe is a peer firm, something that has similar statistics to that company, and they will compare it to that one. And that's how they draw the stats of, is this company doing well? So there is a difference between these two. One is drawn out over time, and it really focuses on the trends, really. It shows a lot more about how it does against another competitor over time. And then, like in the textbook, it says a span of many years. But the peer firm comparison is really used for in the moment. And it's used, like, for banks to give you, decide whether to give you loans or things like that. And then they also cycles into the fact where they talk about industry average financial ratios. Now that goes right into peer firm comparisons, because when you're comparing firms right between each other, you need to know the industry average to know if either firm is actually a good firm based on the industry that they're in. For example, Dell and Compaq are both in the software or computer industry. So if the average there is very high and both those companies fall below it, then that's probably not a good company to compare your company to. And let's say Dell would compare its company to the highest industry average at that time, which in fact was Compaq, which is why they chose it. So that's important to keep in mind when having a peer firm comparison. So overall, those are the two, and that's what they're used for.